Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're very happy that you're joining our show again this week. It's very important that there's citizens like you, people that are interested in what's happening in our cities. It's important for good government that there's a flow of information back and forth from the city staff, the city council and mayors out to you, the residents, but then they also need to hear back from you too. So we're glad that you're with us tonight. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area to update us on what's been happening and what's going to happen in the future. Well, we're very happy tonight to have George Selman come back to our show again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been on before, so we're very glad that you're back here again and can kind of update us on what's happening in Robbinsdale. And you've got a lot of new things going, right?
We do. It's very exciting times in Robbinsdale.
Right. Now, because you've been on our show before, you know that I'm going to let you introduce yourself out to our wider audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and your time in Robbinsdale.
Okay, well, my name is George Selman. I'm enjoying the middle of my 3rd term on the Robbinsdale City Council. My wife and I moved to Robbinsdale in 1978, and our daughters are married and they have children and they all live in Robbinsdale as well. So we have 3 generations of our family in Robbinsdale, and we're very excited about that. But my involvement goes back to probably the early 80s when I got involved with the Robbinsdale JCs.
Oh.
And I got involved with some of the service projects that they did, and I discovered that I rather enjoyed that, and I had a little bit of a knack for it, so it kind of became a hobby of mine to get involved in other things like Whiz Bang Days and the Robbinsdale Lions, and serving on several commissions for the city over the years prior to being on the council.
So let's move on to the area of crime prevention. Now, your city has the Robbinsdale Crime Prevention Association. Can you tell us a little bit about this group and their meetings and what they do that help residents?
They are a group of people, and it was started, it might be 30 years ago, I don't remember the exact, but it's been quite a while that they've been organized, and I think it was around the time that we had an officer killed that it was started, the only officer, Officer Scanlon, and they meet every other month. They may skip a meeting in the summer, but they meet on and it's at the upper level of our public safety building. Oftentimes there's coffee and cookies provided by them, but they meet on issues that may be coming up. A lot of times in the spring meetings, it can be about reminding people not to leave things in their cars. A lot of citizens in Robbinsdale park on the street, or they park in their driveway, or they park in their driveway in their alley.
Right.
And those are areas that are easy for criminals to not have to worry about prying eyes and look in windows. And if they see a laptop, you know, they're probably going to break a window to get it if it's desirable to them. And they really do a great job of reminding citizens to be a smaller target and to not create opportunity and invite criminal activity into their home or their car or their neighborhood.
Now, the next meeting that's going to come up is going to deal with a focus on scams, schemes, and shams. I had to take that slowly.
Yes, you do.
Protecting yourself against fraud. When will that meeting be?
That meeting is actually going on at the time of this taping.
Oh, okay.
And if I was there, I would be able to come here and tell you a lot about it.
Right.
But basically what they'll be covering is the most recent scams that are coming up. Perhaps, and the one I've heard the police chief talk about recently is the IRS scams where people call and demand a payment be sent immediately to avoid prison or different things. And you know, sadly they prey on the elderly often with that. And it's,
that's true.
You know, and so it's important for people to get that information and then share it with their neighbors that maybe weren't at those meetings.
Yeah, I know we've gotten a couple of those calls, but had read about it ahead of time.
It's nice to be able to just hang up on them and call the police so they know you got one.
Right.
And probably the biggest thing they remind people of is if it doesn't feel right, dial 911. So many times people don't dial 911 because they think it's for a known emergency. And originally that's what it was for, but many years ago that changed, and that is the way to get a hold of the Robbinsdale Police Department. If you call the police department, they're going to transfer you to the 911 operator. So all you're doing is wasting time. Dial 911. You will not be in trouble if it was not anything. If you see something and it's not normal, you're home during the day for lunch and you see some activity at a neighbor's house, call 911 and have an officer go and look. 9 times out of 10, it's nothing, and that's great. But what you don't want to do is find out they stole a bunch of family heirlooms that can't be replaced, and you watched it happen, and you didn't do what the easiest thing you could do was anonymously make a phone call.
Yeah, I think you're right. People are kind of reluctant, and we've been trying to have had people in the past on the show say, use that 911 number. But I hadn't thought of it when you're kind of worried about a scam for something, because you might have people come to your door too. So that might be a good time to call the police department, check what's happening. Is this...
Well, and in Robbinsdale, solicitors have to register with the city, and that's true in most communities. And asking for that registration or permit is very appropriate. And if they don't have it, close the door and dial 911, because they're basically preying potentially. They're preying on people that are vulnerable, and it's we all want to protect everyone to the best we can. The other thing they focus on these meetings on consistently is teaching people to be a good witness. Being a good witness is and I'll use my wife as an example. Recently in Brooklyn Center by Walmart, there was a shooting, and she happened to witness it, not close fortunately, but she saw a car speeding away and got the license plate and dialed 911, and they asked her what color was the car. She said the license plate was. All she got was the license plate, and she didn't. But when she zeroed in on just that thing, and while that's very helpful, they really teach you to try to be the best witness you can, and not that the person was what their race might have been or anything, but were they wearing bright red shoes, or did they have a particular type of clothing on? Were they carrying a certain color bag? All those certain little things really help the police find that person and find out if they were involved in a crime.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it'd be important.
And it's that type of training that they do at the crime prevention meetings, and it's really valuable, and they're very well attended. Oftentimes, depending on what's going on, there can be as many as 100 people at these meetings, and it's the room gets kind of crowded, but it's always productive, and I think people come back because they feel like it's worth their time.
And so they could always check the website, because that'll have the information. Now, another part of crime prevention is your Neighborhood Watch program. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about it for people that aren't familiar. Actually, we don't have designated neighborhoods like a lot of our surrounding communities do. We've talked about it. I'm personally opposed to it. I think we're small enough that the negative impacts of that are outweighed by the benefits. That being said, our crime prevention group does have a campaign where they created these We Watch, We Call, and We Care signs. And they're basically a campaign yard sign like in the graphics behind us. And I think they're $5. And they're all over the city. And it just reminds criminals. Years ago, probably 30 years ago, the Operation ID signs were in all the different cities, and it told criminals, boy, people here are watching. Well, now these are in X percentages of the yards, and you can't go a block in Robbinsdale without seeing one of these. And it really reminds people that this might not be the best place to participate in even a minor crime. Oh yeah, yours is the first city I've heard of for that. Well, might not have asked people before, but I thought that's a good idea. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that our crime prevention group was last year recognized by a state law enforcement group, which I can't recall, but it was a very nice award for them to get. And then, are there any other measures that we haven't touched on that Robbinsdale uses to? have there be less crime.
Well, I think we take advantage of one thing that most every city does, and that's National Night Out.
Oh, yes.
We have a lot
yes,
of block parties, big and small. Some of them are very modest, some of them are huge. My ward floats between 15 and 23 that I go to, and I go to every one.
Right.
I usually get to mine somewhere around 10 p.m. as they're cleaning up, but on my block. But that is our one night of the year where we really, our police force, our firefighters, the Robbinsdale Whiz Bang Days ambassadors, the entire city council, some of our commissioners, all these folks go out to these, and we're all over the place hitting as many of them as we can. And if you think about it, most of them run from like 6 to dusk.
Right.
So that doesn't give you a lot of time to get to 20
No.
places. And
Right.
but I really pride myself in at least making an appearance and leaving cards and
yes,
setting up
yes.
follow-up meetings with people where we can talk. And I don't want to get stuck at one where I miss 6 other ones as a result.
Right, right.
And the other thing is that in Robbinsdale and other cities as well have the opportunity for citizens to do police ride-alongs.
Oh, right, right.
And I've done that, and it is. I was going to do a 4-hour shift on the overnight shift.
Right.
I ended up staying almost the full 12-hour shift that the officer I was riding with. I think I stayed for close to 11 hours, and because it was so interesting.
Oh, yes.
And we always hear about the bad things police
Right.
do, and just like any group of humans,
Right.
some percentage of them maybe aren't the best people on a broad scale.
Right.
But when it comes to the officers that I've worked with, and the one I rode along, for example, when he's patrolling an alley and he sees a garage door open, and he gets out and he looks around and doesn't see anything,
Right.
he closes the door, and he puts a note in their door to let him know that they found it open, and if there's anything missing to call,
Right.
and report it, and to remind them to close it.
Oh, right.
And that's something that he prints those cards
Right.
on his own, and that's nobody makes him do that.
No.
It's just, but it makes. Those are the types of things that our police do that are little things that we so often don't hear
Oh,
about.
that's true. Very true. Now, a while back, I read an article about tax increment financing and about suburbs embracing this process. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard the word, but they don't have any idea what it means. So I've been asking a number of different people from different cities to talk about that issue so we can get kind of a wider look at that process. Now, my understanding is TIF, which is the acronym for it, was originally set up to deal with blighted areas of the city and to bring in new jobs. Can you tell us a little bit about any changes you've seen over your time in the TIF process?
Well, and my time spans more than just the 10 years on the council. I was on the planning
Right,
commission
right.
for probably close to another 10
Right.
years before that. And TIF is used basically right in Robbinsdale to clear sites for most of the major downtown Robbinsdale redevelopments that we've had. I've got a list here of Copperfield, and this isn't immediate downtown,
Right.
but Copperfield Hills Retirement
Right.
Home, Broadway Court Apartments, EMI Sound and Light, which is in the old Robbinsdale Farm and Garden building. Previous rounds of the facade improvement program we talked about earlier, we used TIF for that. Downtown Plaza, Streetscapes, US Bank, Town Center, Travail Rookery Building, Hoagland's and Pig Ate My Pizza Building.
Right.
Nona Rosa's, a lot of restaurants in Robbinsdale.
there are.
We're kind of a
There
food
are,
street, so if
yeah.
you're hungry, come check us out.
Right.
TSG, which is the Steinhauser Group, that's the brick building right on the corner of 42nd and West Broadway. We've done some apartment rehabilitation, Parker Village Apartments, Claire Terrace, which is a wonderful new facility that was built by the Claire folks that allows homeless folks that are suffering with AIDS. It affords them a place to live with dignity and care that
Right.
they need. And it's a beautiful facility on the
Yeah.
corner of 36th and France. And then the other thing we use it for a lot is our scattered house, our scattered site housing replacement.
Right. Now, can you describe the process a little bit for people, how it works for a city?
I can.
Okay. Will
Sort
you?
of.
Well, sort of, in a general way.
Well, in that I can definitely do.
Right.
Really what it does, it helps us use tax payments.
Okay.
And I'm referring to my notes because I want
Right.
to get this right. Because it is probably the most, and other people that are on city councils, I'm sure would agree, one of the most complicated things we deal with.
It is.
It's,
Right.
it's painfully complicated, and I don't pretend to be an expert
Right.
at it. But it helps us use tax payments generated from improvements
Right.
to cover the cost between acquisition plus the site clearance and the sale of the land.
Right, because you've got the original taxes coming in on a piece of property,
Mm-hmm.
and you can only use it for things like the demolition and the roads and the water and that type of thing, right?
Right, it has to be for a major
Right.
renovation or
Right.
or replacement of a structure
Right.
that's blighted probably.
And then when you put the new one on, then it gets to be bringing in more taxes.
Right, and the more taxes go toward recovering the cost of
Right,
making this whole thing
right,
happen.
right.
And then once that happens, then those tax dollars roll on to the tax rolls like it would normally.
So it allows cities to do some of this redevelopment faster than they would be if you only had your own funding, right?
I would say it allows cities to do some of this redevelopment, period.
Okay.
It much, or if not all of it, in Robbinsdale, hardly any of these things would have happened.
Right.
But for the TIF program.
Yeah, so it is an important program for a city to be involved with.
And I would suspect it's an important program for cities big and small.
Right. Now, it does have some effect on those taxes coming in for the county and the school district, though, right?
Correct, and that's probably the part of it I'm the weakest on.
Okay.
But it really is, while the project costs are being reimbursed, there is a delay
Right.
in the tax capacity of the new projects being available to spread to the county and school districts in their levies until that
Right,
redevelopment cost
is paid off.
is recovered. So in essence, the county, the city, and the school district is all investing in this
Right,
effort for the
right,
long-term benefit
right.
of the region.
Right. And then it's important for cities, excuse me,
Certainly.
it's important for cities to balance how much they put into TIF projects because of the fact that those taxes, the increase in taxes, won't be available for basic needs, right?
That's correct. If they're not, you spend the money to redevelop the
Right.
property, and if you didn't do that, those dollars were never going
right,
to be
right.
available.
Now let's move to a different subject,
Okay.
but it's kind of related because you mentioned it, the scattered site housing.
Okay.
And the city of Robbinsdale has done a lot of projects to improve your neighborhoods. Can you briefly tell us what does scattered site housing mean, or how does it work?
Well, Robbinsdale is a completely built-out city.
Right.
Many of the homes were built. Some of the homes were built in the late 1800s, and homes, like everything else, don't last forever.
True.
And our housing inventory is the city's biggest asset. When you think about it, it produces the property taxes. And as a council member, the thing I get complaints about probably as much as anything is blighted or distressed
Right.
housing and its impact. If you're trying to sell your home and there's some abandoned home next to
Right.
you that has broken windows and peeling paint, it lessens the value of your home to a potential
Oh,
buyer.
yes.
And that's a real thing. And we really don't have a lot of patience for that. Our citizens have made it very clear to us that, at least for myself, they want us to protect this housing
Right.
inventory.
And now, how many years has Robbinsdale been using this process, approximately?
You told me you were going to ask that question, so I had to do some homework. But we started our scattered site housing project in 1968, so
Oh,
that's
a
48
long
years
time,
ago, if my
a
math's
long
right.
time.
And it's really my wife and I built our house through this program many years ago, 15 years ago, on a house that was on a double corner lot
Okay.
with a small home that had been built in the 20s and had
Right.
been abandoned for several years. And to find a double corner lot in Robbinsdale happened to be three blocks from our existing home.
Aha.
So we made an offer on the lot and got it, and we assigned the offer to the city. So they bought it. They did the demolition work. They capped the utilities. They checked the site for construction
Right,
readiness.
right.
And then they sold it back to us for a lesser amount
Right.
than they paid for it.
Yeah.
And this happens on all these
Oh,
things.
right,
And
right.
with the understanding and agreement that we had to build a house of a certain size and
Right,
scope
right.
so that those funds could be recovered within a certain time.
Now, how does the city staff determine which houses they're going to use this process on?
It's really done through a variety of things. First is identifying them, and,
Okay.
sadly they're pretty easy to identify.
Right.
Citizens will call us, city
Okay.
staff will see it, we see them and tell city staff, hey, check on this property, it just went up for sale, or it might be on the sheriff's list of homes that are foreclosed on, and it allows us the chance to get into the homes, make a viable offer for them through the EDA,
Right.
and once we get it, we do that same thing that they did for my house
Right,
all those years
right.
ago, and they demolish the home, prep it for construction, and then those lots go on sale.
So, and you have some lots for sale right now, right?
We actually do. We have, let's see. I had a list here. Oh, I know where it is. I even tabbed it. We have 6 lots that are not part of a development.
Okay.
That are just traditional lots.
Right.
3 are on Regent in our
Okay.
Quail Ridge area. These are higher end homes in a development that's north of 81 and west of 100,
Okay.
kind of behind the sound wall there.
Sure.
Very beautiful neighborhood, and there's 3 of those lots that remain. Those homes, most of them are valued at 400,000 plus, so they're very nice lots.
Right.
And then we also have one on 4629 France, which is near where France and Highway 100 ramp is. It's kind of the last house on the left if you're heading toward 100 on France and
Yeah.
Robbinsdale. But it's an enormous lot, and it's got a beautiful marsh area behind it that for water retention for all the highway runoff and part of overflow for the lake. And it also, we have one on 4023 Zane, about 4 doors away from me.
Okay.
And one at 3807 Major. So, and these happen all the time
Right.
throughout the year.
Yeah, so people are interested, they should check on the city website or come to City Hall, right?
Yeah, just go to City Hall and there'll be somebody that can help you there, or the city website is
Right.
a great resource.
A process that's been going on for a while is the Blue Line extension, the light rail transit that's going to be eventually coming, hopefully, to Robbinsdale in our area. Now, the LRT process has been underway for quite a few years. Can you just give a little history, some bullet points maybe of what's been happening?
Well, when you ask for a history, you often wonder how far back should a person go. Briefly, I got involved with this at the request of Commissioner Opat
Okay,
15 years ago.
okay,
which
because I
can't
knew you were
believe.
very involved.
And as a member of the Community Advisory Committee to the county. And I've had hundreds and hundreds of different things. You know, first we were starting with bus rapid
Right,
transit,
at
and
the
then
beginning.
because of the success of the Hiawatha light rail, the idea of putting light rail in our corridor, primarily on the railroad corridor
Right.
that already exists, kind of evolved, and then that became our locally preferred alternative, probably about 5 years ago.
Right.
And now we just recently, all the cities that are part of the project passed a municipal consent agreement where we all agreed with some conditions along
Right.
the way, but basically endorsed the 15% level of the engineering that's completed to
Right.
this point. And that was an important milestone that
Oh,
that all
yes,
cities, 'cause
very
we
important.
if one's out, we're all out, that it won't happen.
Right.
And so we were very fortunate to get everybody to support the project to the level to get it to go forward.
And that's part of the process of being able to get federal money involved, right?
Precisely. I mean, this is $1 billion project,
Right.
and half of that money is coming from the federal government. And I can say with all the confidence of the world, if that doesn't happen, the project's not going to happen.
Right. Definitely. So that went through. There was kind of some questions about some of the cities, but all of them managed to do that.
Correct.
Right. Then they're working on the next stage, finally, when you're going to come to construction, and there's the Metropolitan Council in Robbinsdale had to come to some agreement to use some of Sahaki Park.
That's correct.
Tell us about that. What's going to happen? And
with the leadership and staff of the City of Robbinsdale, City of Golden Valley, and the Three Rivers Park District, a list of principles were basically developed. We have a joint powers agreement for Sahaki Park and the Mary Knowles Park Reserve with Golden Valley and Robbinsdale and Three Rivers, because we're in the middle of redeveloping that part, and now there's a lot of lowland water areas that the rail line has to go through, and they're basically going to be building a bridge to have minimal impact on the wildlife areas in there and minimal water displacement, so that they don't have to recover that water, because it is a floodplain. That water storage amount very much by going with the bridge. It really minimizes the impact of that. And we used we had these principles developed to guide the use of the park during the construction, and as well as a list of improvements to provide mitigation and equitable compensation for the temporary occupancy of the park for the construction. And I'm absolutely reading that because it was written probably by several attorneys.
Right.
When you get three different entities together. But the improvement actions will be redefined closer to the time of construction, and public comment will be sought regarding details. But basically, they're going to be taking an area that has a lot of invasive species, and that most of Sahaki Park, the lower area, is all road construction from Minneapolis from 70 plus years ago that was just dumped there. Some of it, we don't know how thick or how deep it is, but it's there, and it's they're going to have to mitigate a certain amount of that and provide good soils so we can actually have real proper trees in there for the long-term vitality and life of the park.
So they're going to be able to use it for construction, but then Robbinsdale's going to have some benefits.
Robbinsdale and Golden Valley and Three Rivers Park Districts, and roads that are heavily used by construction equipment that are residential streets and not designed will be repaired, and things like that. They don't just put it back the way it was. They give it back to the way it was presented to us. It's going to come back to us better than ever, and in like new condition. And we get input on how that happens.
Well, I want to thank you so much. We've covered a lot of information and probably could keep on talking for a while, but we'll encourage those of you out there to tune in next week for part 2 on Robbinsdale's issues. And remember, if these are areas that concern you, contact George Selman if you're in Robbinsdale, or contact your mayors and city council people. Bye.